It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Bakers University head volleyball coach, Coach Nils Nielson. How are you doing today?
Very good.
Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college volleyball?
Yeah, I don't know if I actually had that as the end goal when I first got into coaching. When I first got into coaching, it was kind of a means to an end. At the time, I was training and didn't have a job, wasn't getting paid much, and so started coaching club just as a ways to make money. And figured since I'm playing volleyball, I could probably coach it. It shouldn't be that hard. Quickly learned that it's a little bit more challenging than I anticipated, but it was also a lot more fun than I anticipated as well. So as I started doing that, one thing led to another. Opportunities kept, opening up, and was able to do it on different levels at different times. And here you go, college coaching, and just feel fortunate that I got all those opportunities along the way.
What was that experience like for you going to Cal State Northridge and getting to play collegiate volleyball?
That was a big one. I was really excited to be able to do that. Northridge ended up being a really good fit for me. Harvard of the West Coast, you can't complain too much about going there. Anybody who's gone to Northridge, Geeter, that's his joke. I've stole that for many years. He's a Northridge alum. But yeah, no, being able to play at Northridge, having it be close enough to home so that I could be home, or my parents could come to games from time to time, but far enough away so that it still felt like I had to leave my hometown to be able to go to college, was a very formative experience and ultimately a very positive one.
While on the volleyball team, what were some of your biggest accomplishments as a player?
Just on the accomplishment side, I think in my senior year, I think I got second team All-American. Never thought that something like that would be possible. I had an injury going into college that made it challenging and potentially career-ending injury. I had a bulged disc and had back surgery my senior year in high school, so I didn't play my senior year in high school. So just going into college, I always had the mindset of, listen, this thing could be taken away from me at any time. I might as well make the most of it and just enjoy it. So tried to do that as much as possible and just take it as far as it could go. And, ended up doing fairly well there and being fairly successful. I think one of the things I remember, I want to say it was my junior year, we beat Hawaii when they were ranked number 1. That was at home in the Matadome. Both times we went out to Hawaii was always an adventure. It was always really fun. I remember playing at USC in the old gym with the band on top of us, having some battles with those teams and just not even being able to hear yourself scream at your teammate right next to you because it was so loud. So I don't know if there's ever any one particular thing that stands out as like the most accomplished or anything, but just that body of experiences that you get when you're playing at that level, and getting heckled and going to BYU and getting yelled at because I was a skinny 165 pound 6'4" guy trying to play volleyball. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
What was that experience like getting to represent the U.S. national team and being a part of the men's national team?
Again, probably very similar to the idea or the experience of being able to play in college. I never thought it was something that I had in my mind as like something that I wanted to accomplish. It was just an opportunity came, step into it and do the best that you could possibly do at the time. And it ended up working out. So again, that was super formative. I still have friendships and colleagues that are now, coaching at big time schools and in big time jobs that I still am close with from that experience. So going from, representing a school to then having the opportunity to represent your country, is something that I'm just really grateful that I got the opportunity to do.
For you, what was it like getting into coaching and first being a volunteer assistant at UCLA and then going to Kansas to be a volunteer assistant?
Yeah. Well, when you work for free, it's amazing what kind of opportunities present themselves. I do actually remember when John Spraw called me. I applied, I talked, I knew the assistant Brad Keller at the time. And that position opened up, and I reached out, applied, and was waiting. And I do remember him calling me and saying, like, yeah, let's do it. You can come on board. And just how excited I was to again have an opportunity to be around somebody who is at that level of coaching was really, really cool. I learned probably more from the tactics side of things and training structure than I had ever learned before, because you actually get to see a little bit, again, how the sausage is made in regards to how they train, what they train, and then how it applies to the tactics and strategy that were put on the court. And so seeing that and being a part of that was a lot of fun and very formative. I learned a ton. Really, really impressive staff at the time, and learning from a guy like John Spraw. I mean, I still, every once in a while, I'll see him at a convention or something like that. He knows me. I say hi. He's a phenomenal guy. He's always been super nice, super open to me. And I still just get excited that he knows who I am. Is seems silly to me, but great guy, and very, very knowledgeable and willing to share that knowledge with his staff. So I learned a lot, and it helped me a lot in my coaching.
What was that experience like for you, getting to be an assistant coach for the U.S. men's national team and going to the Pan American Games?
The Pan American Games is an awesome, again, opportunity. So the two coaches were Charlie Sullivan, now head coach, Theo Edwards, and then Buddha, if you guys know Buddha, Sam. That staff, I have never been on a staff where I had more fun and performed that at that level. I think one of the main takeaways from that staff was that coaching, you can do it at a really high level, and it can be a lot of fun. And in fact, I think potentially the enjoyment of the people that you're around and the staff and what you're trying to do, having a good time actually helps the team and the staff be more successful in situations like that. So I was really lucky to be able to do that twice, and then did it with Jeff Nygaard. He was the head, and both of those things were just really, really, again, formative. Like, you learn so much from people. You kind of have a handle, or you think at some point, like, okay, I know a little bit about what's going on. I've played this game at a high level for a little while, and then you get to be in a staff that's coaching at a high level, and so you're like, okay, yeah, I kind of have it figured out, or I know it's something. Then you go to another staff and see it from a different perspective, and it just felt like every single time it was relearning. Like, man, I have so much to learn. That has continued, and those three things, probably going from John Spraw at UCLA to then those two Pan American teams, were the bulk and the foundation of so much of my coaching knowledge that I implement today.
What was that experience like for you, becoming a head coach for the first time and coming to Baker's University to become a women's head volleyball coach?
Well, so it actually wasn't the first time. I was a head coach at a small high school called Windward in LA. I was called the program lead. So I was the varsity. It's a high school, small, like 550 or so students from 7 through 12. Got hired on there by a guy that I cannot speak highly enough, Tyrone Powell. He's still the athletic director there. Phenomenal human being. Learned that was the first time I was given the reins, given the keys. Here's the steering wheel. Good luck. For the women's program, when I took over, the number one piece of things that needed to change was the culture. And so when I stepped into that, that role with the women's team, I came in like a wrecking ball and was just like, here's the change that's going to happen and get on board. Well, it didn't go great. There was some resistance. There was some learning. It was a challenging time. Had the next one was the men's program, high school varsity. They needed this similar type of culture change. I had learned some lessons from the previous season with the women that I didn't come in quite as strongly with the men's, and it went better. And so I was still a challenge. There was still a lot of learning that was happening, and it was a lot. But being able to really dive into the culture and given the keys, like I said, my athletic director was really, really good at the time of guiding me and helping me learn. And probably maybe allowing me a little bit too much freedom with how hard I came in, but he was really, really nice at asking questions and guiding and making sure that I was kind of not so off the rails that it was going to be a disaster. So that was really formative. Then if you fast forward, when I took over at Baker, the experience that I had at Windward was so important for when I came in here, because again, they needed a little bit of a culture change. It was just a different style of coaching before I came in. It's just a different. So when I came in, it was very much more question based. It was more, who do we want to be, rather than me dictating who we need to be, asking questions, getting to know the girls, trying to figure out what they wanted. And it was a little bit of a slower process maybe, but it went a lot better, and it ended up in a good place. And we're still in the process of building, changing, and growing that culture. But where we are now compared to where I first came in, I'm pretty excited about it.
For you, what was that feeling like stepping onto the Bakers volleyball court for the first time as a head coach?
It was probably a mix of a lot of things. One, I was really nervous. I was surprised at how nervous I was, but it wasn't necessarily thinking about the win-loss. I wasn't concerned at that time about winning or losing the game. I just wanted to see if we could implement some of the things we had been working on. And I think that first game, I had the realization of the weight that I was potentially carrying with the culture change that was expected and the direction of the program, that it was really felt as though it was all on my shoulders. I've since realized that it's not, so that's a good realization to have over time. But yeah, it was nervous anticipation and also excitement, kind of all the things all at once. And then once the game gets going, okay, we're going to implement our strategy and focus in on the game. So it went away after that first serve, but yeah, all of the things, I guess.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've built for Baker's volleyball?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Can you talk about the culture that you built for Baker's volleyball?
Well, it depends on how long you have. I could probably sit here for the next 2.5 hours and just talk about it. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that. I would say the thing that I strive for the girls to be, and that I try to do with my coaches, is one, being intentional and specific with what we're doing, right? And now what we're doing and who we are in the process of doing what we do, while I feel as though I'm guiding that and but I'm really helping the girls decide what that is. So it's up to them, right? Who we are, how we show up, the things that are important. They have a say in that piece of things, and it's required a little bit of guiding, but via questions and that kind of thing. But I think the idea of intentionality and really understanding, like, what are we doing and why are we doing it, and how does that tie back to the values that we have, is something that they weren't exposed to before. I think a lot of players, not every player, I think a lot of coaches are doing similar things. Nothing I've learned has been really original. I've stolen it from all the people I've been around in books and that kind of thing. So I know it's happening out there, but I think a lot of players a lot of coaches end up, they want the players to be robots. Just do what I say and don't worry about it, right? If you do what I say, we're going to win. Well, from my perspective, that was unsustainable, because a lot of times I'm not smart enough tactically to put everybody in the right spot every time, right? I need your guys' feedback to figure this thing out and help me solve the puzzle so that we can solve the puzzle and put it together. So there's that partnership that we've tried to create with both the players and myself, but then also the players to players. And what are those, what's the communication look like? What are the tools that we need? How do we want to show up in the conversations that we're having, you know, when somebody's maybe doing something outside of the alignment that we want? How do we want to show up when we're succeeding? How do we want to show up when we're failing? You know, how do we show up when the score is 20-5 and we're team with 5? You know, how do we show up when we scores 20-5 and we're the team with 20? I think all of those things are important. Again, we want to be intentional and specific with how we show up. Now, how we show up, that's up to them. And what is important, that's up to them.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against each week?
Each week, yeah, that's a lot. So our conference is split in half. So we do a round and a half. I'll talk about our half of the conference. So our half of the conference is Benedictine, Central Methodist University, MNU, Missouri Valley, and I'm forgetting one here off the top of my head. But those are kind of our rival schools. That half, those schools are very good, very competitive. I was not anticipating how competitive the NAIA in regards to volleyball would be when I took over the job, and I have since been educated on that piece of it. There are some really good teams. There are some really good coaches in our conference and then nationwide, and it's a lot of fun. So that piece of it has challenged me to get better tactically and strategically, and making sure that we continue to build the culture the way we want it so that we can be competitive.
What does that home game atmosphere feel like when teams come to your home volleyball court?
It's great. We have some really good, if you ever watch on, we have a streaming service, so we stream all our home games, but if you ever watch the way the camera is set up, the gym will look empty, but that's just because we have half the gym on the, half the gym set up. So the fans are sitting on the side with the camera. And so it's a funny look on TV a little bit, but the atmosphere in the gym is actually awesome. We generally get a pretty good turnout, depending on the rivalry or who we play. But some of those games on senior night, some of those like the home opener is always a big game for us. It's fun. I don't know if it compares to when I was a player and being at BYU and getting just absolutely crushed by the hecklers there in creative ways and trying to get your focus somewhere else. But it's pretty close. They do a good job here.
Of course, what does your game day routine and rituals look like?
Yeah, the rituals. I was actually thinking about that when I saw that question. And I don't know if I think the players have some rituals in the locker room that I'm not a part of. They get their time there. But the one that I have is just the silly one. I always wear what I call my game day socks. So I'll have a pretty standard uniform of a polo that's in a school color, some normal slacks, and then I'll wear some flair in my socks. So I have different socks. If we're playing on Tuesday, I usually wear socks that have tacos on them. I have 2 little girls who have since figured out that I wear game day socks. So now on all the holidays, I get socks for game day from them. So depending on the importance of the game, I have my lucky socks. I have some just random fun socks. That's kind of my ritual for myself.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes? And as a head coach, what do you look at in those prospective student athletes?
Oh, that is probably the most complicated thing that I am learning about and doing right now. For NAIA, for us, I actually have like a whole recruiting spiel that takes about 30 or 40 minutes to get through when I'm going through my recruiting education talks at camps and that kind of thing. But essentially, it boils down to if kids are interested in playing volleyball in college, get video and send it out. If the only reason you're playing volleyball is to try to find a school and a scholarship, you should think about doing something else. I'm a firm believer that kids should be playing volleyball because they really enjoy the sport. And again, opportunities will present themselves or they won't based on how you're engaging with the sport. So go out there, do the best that you can, have a good time, and really enjoy your teammates and the team as much as you can. And then whatever happens, happens. Now that said, if you do have a school that you do want to go to, having video available is always good. I think a lot of coaches are sending out surveys. If you get those surveys from a coach, fill it out. It's not that hard. If you're interested in a school specifically, reach out to the coach themselves and be patient. If a coach doesn't get back to you, they're busy. I'm the only recruiter at the moment for all of Baker, right? So I have an email box that is completely full. I've got a text message that's completely full. It's just everything's overflowing. So I try to get back to all the students as quickly as I can, but oftentimes it's not as quickly as they would like. Don't take offense to that, but it's usually my number one piece of advice to the girls when they're in that process.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that Baker uniform for the first time and the seniors putting it on for the last time?
I think watching them put the uniform on for the first time just reminds me a little bit of when I was coaching for the first time. So you have all the emotions. You're going to be excited. You're going to be nervous. You probably don't want to let anybody down. You also want to have the best game ever as your opener. There's all this weight to it. Just making sure we can focus in on that next step and do your job is really what we're trying to get them to figure out. We'll give them a lot of leeway in that process. So it's enjoyable to me because I feel like I can see a little bit of myself in the emotions that they're having. And at the end of the day, no matter what happens, I know that it's going to be okay. And sometimes they don't necessarily feel that, but it's going to be okay. So just allowing them freedom to have those emotions, and then we'll debrief afterward. No matter what happens, it's going to be okay. For the seniors in the last one, what I hope, so I hope that they are satisfied with the body of work that they have created at the time they put that jersey on for the last time. Senior night is always emotional. There's always tears. It's a real fun time to reflect, and it's a really fun time to allow them one more opportunity for that. So seeing the players go from just absolute emotional overload of this is the last time after 4 years and all their friends are around them, their family is usually there, can be overwhelming. And then again, they get to go out there and perform one last time. And in a lot of ways, it's the same thing. Like no matter what happens, it's going to be okay. So
what is it like getting to see them put that first professional volleyball uniform on after graduating from Baker?
Well, I haven't had that happen quite yet. There was a player that just recently, I had a few players when I was coaching at KU that I had relationships with that have done that. And it's really, really fun. Again, I feel a little bit of, I understand a little bit about the emotions that they're going through. I still remember when I first was playing professionally, it was in Switzerland. I was making just enough money to like buy food for the month, but I was getting paid to play this sport. It was just unbelievable. Like that experience of getting a paycheck to play this game that you've been playing. It might be different now with all the NIL stuff and all the payments that are going on in the Division I level. That might be a little bit different, but it's cool experience to see them get to that next level when they do it.
What are some of your future plans for Baker's volleyball program moving forward?
Future plans. Well, step number one is making our postseason conference tournament. We can do that. We were one game out last season. That's kind of next steps for us. From there, in the perfect world, we would be competing for that championship conference and then at some point be in the national tournament. And I don't know the timeline involved in that. I think we're on that track. So that's the hope, that's the dream, that's where we're going. And hopefully we can start putting ourselves in those positions sooner rather than later.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college volleyball?
It's overwhelming. Try to enjoy it, learn as much as you can, rely on your teammate, and at the end of the day, realize it's going to be okay.
What advice would you give those seniors looking to play professional volleyball after their collegiate career ends?
It's different. I think it's quite a bit different. When you are a professional, there's a lot less handholding. All of a sudden, I think what happens from collegiate to professional is you become a competitive commodity. You will now be judged and treated more transactionally based on your performance. And that can be really, really hard sometimes. So now all of a sudden it becomes more on you as an athlete to separate yourself as a person and a player, because you will get more of your feedback is from the player perspective. And so you have to surround yourself with people who will give you positive or negative feedback on the person aspect of it.
What advice would you give those future coaches out there looking to get started in coaching in college volleyball?
Yeah, just do it. You're probably going to start with the club team. Treat people the right way. And just realize if you talk, I would imagine that if you talk to any college coach at any level, everybody has a completely different story of how they got into it. There is no real roadmap or instruction manual on how to do it. So if you're looking for that, stop and just start coaching, figuring it out, and talking to people. And that's probably the best way to go about it.
What advice would you give those head coaches looking to build their own program and build their own coaching legacy?
This is just my personal perspective, but one of my favorite quotes that I learned a while ago is culture eats tactics for breakfast. So I would say focus on the culture piece, know what's important, and focus on that.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Baker's volleyball program at? Unfortunately, I am not really on social media, fortunately or unfortunately. So no need to follow there. If I was going to push anybody to go somewhere, I have a couple of friends that do a podcast called Coach Your Brains Out that I participate in from time to time. Follow that, listen to that. That's a fun volleyball coaching, overall coaching, but maybe with a little focus on volleyball. That's probably the main one there. Baker website has all my information. So if you're a recruit, shoot me an email. Those are probably the two main pieces of information for me out there. Thank you again, Coach Nielson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future at Baker as the head volleyball coach.
Thanks so much, Brandon.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Nielson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Appreciate it.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.